All right, everyone, welcome back to our next episode of Designing the Best You. Before we get started, as always, I want to encourage you that if anything in this episode resonates with you, head to the links in the bio or in the show notes to join our email list and communities. It's really important to stay connected because we were designed for a community. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So, when protocols that are given to you are not enough to solve your health issues, it is a controversial topic because so many practitioners, even my own field, even in my own field, we work so hard to create these unique protocols. We take our lab results, we take your health history, you take your symptoms, and you correlate everything together and you create this beautifully crafted protocol. And everyone's like, it's gonna work, right? Sometimes it's a little complex and overwhelming for the clients, but it's like it's gonna work, right? But here's what I've been noticing over the past, I'd say over the past year, is that most of us have a chronic health issue in addition to trauma. And you're all like, you listen to all my episodes, your guys are all like, yeah, no, I don't have trauma, Vennessa. Okay. But here's the thing, I want to share with you what happens when trauma becomes the operating system for your body and then what to do about it. Like, legit, like your unresolved trauma owns you. I can speak from personal experience. I say it professionally. Okay. And here's the thing, when a chronic health issue is present, and chronic health issue can be anything from digestive stuff, from constantly getting sick, all the strep and staph and all that stuff, to having an autoimmune condition, to having something that's just like, I don't even know what it is, but I know just I'm sick. Okay. When we have, when a chronic health issue is present, we actually can go wrong. And I'm speaking mostly to like the health practitioners or those of you who are like, I'm going to go do it on my own. I'm going to go play Dr. Google and piece everything together. You can actually do this wrong. You can actually heal wrong. Okay. Because here's the thing, you can't out supplement, out diet, out workout, out meditate the trauma. Okay. I'm telling you, you can't. You could take all the things, you could follow whatever protocol, the 10 different practitioners that you have working with you and specialists, and you're not going to be able to heal. Like I said, that's controversial, right? It's extremely controversial. Like, yeah, okay, Vennessa. But so many of you come to me and you're like, I've done X, Y, Z, A, B, C from all these different people, and I'm still sick and I'm still tired and I'm still just drained and I still can't sleep well and I still have gut issues. What's wrong? How can you help? That's where I come in. And I'm telling you that your health practitioners, your health professionals, they don't have the tools to recognize when trauma is the roadblock to your health. Okay. And I know it's very, very big of me to say, but personally, again, I've experienced it and I've had so many clients. It literally breaks my heart. I sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to hold you. And running a mostly virtual practice, I'm like, I want to hold you because here's the deal is these health professionals and practitioners and specialists and all the things, they just hand over a script or they hand over a protocol. They say, just go get some more rest, or it's all in your head, or whatever it is. And they think that, that's just going to solve the person's problems. Now, I am going to speak on their behalf. They have great intents, or they don't, a lot of times they don't want to admit that they just don't know and they're just at a loss. I've been there before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just at a complete loss. I don't know how else to help you. Okay. But when they just hand that over and think that it's going to solve the person's problem without looking to see what kind of trauma they're dealing with, it's a problem. Okay. The goal should always be that we're looking at the body as a whole, not separate systems. God didn't design us to have, here's this system and here's this system, and they don't touch each other. Y'all, it's like a freaking spaghetti web in there. Everything touches each other, and everything affects each other. Okay, everything. I don't care. You break your foot, it's gonna affect so many things. Okay, you're out in the sun and you get burnt. I mean, we're recording this during fall time, but you're out in the sun and gets burnt. You get burnt. guess what? It's going to affect all things. You eat a food that your body doesn't like, it's going to affect all the things, okay? It's going to affect so many things. You could have skin issues, you could have gut issues with it, you could have brain inflammation or brain fog. Like all you could be exhausted, you could feel like you're going to throw up, you could get bloated, like you can start having pain in your joints, like all these different things, okay? And here's the thing is and trauma is like recently been working with a ton of mold patients. I mean, it's just unreal. How mold, like if you're not in a dry climate, like you're going to be exposed to mold at some point, be honest with you. But it's like mold. It takes over every single part of your body. And that's what like Gabor Mati says, or I can never say his name. Gabor Mates. I never say his name right. Someone please correct me. Please make a comment on how to say it. I've heard a few different ways. But anyways, there's so much more to healing the body than just running the lab tests and diagnostics. Now, you're all like, Vennessa, but you test, don't guess. Yes, I do. I use them as a guide to piece the puzzle together. I mean, come on, there's more than just checking blood sugar or cholesterol or blood pressure in regards of like a preventative standpoint, okay? Those are good things. So if you're just going to your annual checkup and getting those things done, guys, I mean, I'm not going to go down that path, but those are good things. But if a person's still not getting well, or they're still not feeling good, or they're gaining excessive amount of weights, I've noticed that every single time unresolved trauma is the roadblock. And here's the thing with unresolved trauma, okay? Y'all are gonna deny that you've had any kind of trauma and you just want to feel better now. You're like, no, sorry, like I had a decent childhood. My parents are okay. Okay, maybe they were a little harsh in discipline, or maybe they worked all the time, or whatever it may be. We had a few deaths in the family. It really didn't affect me much. It just happens. It's a part of life. Our relationships were decent, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm sorry. Even like birthing our children, you're like, okay, yeah, that one was traumatic. That one was great. Okay, that kid had colic. I got through it. Like, whatever. Like, those are all traumas that add up, okay, over the years. And if you don't learn how to deal with them, we were actually talking about in church a few weeks ago about um, in the book of Leviticus on how when a woman gives birth to, whether it's a boy or a girl, now this is the old law, but like they were given specific periods of time to rest where they didn't have to tend to the men. They literally they didn't have to have sex, they didn't have to tend to them. They didn't have to tend the families and cook and do all the things. Their job was just to rest. Like what a beautiful God that we were created by, that designed us for those things and protected us and cared for us. And here we are in this world and we're running ourselves ragged. Okay? And we're not giving ourselves the rest that we need. And that's why we're having all this trauma. We're not addressing things when we need to address them. But when you take the time as a practitioner, as a teacher, whatever you do for a living, but I'm going to speak a lot to practitioners here, and you take the time to build trust with people who are in pain and not just give them a quick lab test or a supplement or a medication to kind of bring it back into that normal range on the paper. You all know what I'm talking about. You sit there and you've got, grab one, whatever, like a lab test, and you're like, okay, well, it's in the yellow and it's in the red here, and oh, it's hot. Oh my gosh, it's high. Or oh, it's on the low end here. Let's just give you this, and it should bring you back within a couple months. Like, no, sorry. But anyways, when you take the time to build trust with people and you share your story, like I don't know about you, but I have never been to a practitioner, any specialist, anything like that, that takes a little bit of time and says, my gosh, I am so sorry you're dealing with. I have been there. And they share a bit about their story. They're just, if they did, how many more of us would open up? Okay. And here's the thing is, as a practitioner, you have to ask the right questions. You're not gonna sit there and drill and be like, okay, what's this? What just right? How many of you get like a freaking checklist or a questionnaire when you go to, I don't know, I haven't been to a doctor in a long time, but when I was going to the OB after all of my kids were born, it's like, here's a quick little checklist. And you're like, well, I mean, that kind of, yeah, it kind of says what I am feeling right now. Okay, well, whatever, right? You have to comfort the people. You really have to take the time. Okay. And a lot of practitioners just want to make the money and things like that. And yes, do we all want to? Sure. But here's the thing is like, if we don't take the time with people and we don't understand, we don't comfort them like we're called to do. I mean, you really do have to understand how the mind and body work if you're going to be in any sort of medical field. I'm sorry. Even if you're a therapist, you're right, you're a psychologist, anything, you still understand how the body is affected. Okay. Because I mean, come on, you can't separate your emotional life from your physical life, right? When something happens at work, you get laid off or you get scolded, or even if get a promotion or something like that, right? You feel those emotions. And then things in our physical body happen, right? Let's say if it was something negative at work, you start to like cower in, maybe you start to get like constipated because you're just like nervous, or you're like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to get laid off? Oh my goodness, I just got a really bad review, this is the second month in a row, oh my gosh, right? Or what about when you get in an argument with your spouse? How do you feel half the time? I don't know about you, but you usually don't feel that great, like, oh my god, I feel amazing, like, that was such a good argument. My body feels great. I'm gonna go for a run. Like, no, you don't. You're like, oh, everything gets tensed up, right? We might have diarrhea from being nervous if we have, something going on at work that we're just not comfortable with, or something at school. If it's a kid, please, guys, notice what your kids are feeling, and what their physical aspect, their physical symptoms are, right? Maybe they're getting made fun of at school. Maybe you're getting made fun of at work or at church or wherever it may be. And I mean, so many different things. Okay. And so as I went on the beginning of my healing journey, I noticed there was a direct correlation. And I talk about this a lot, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. Okay. Between unresolved trauma, our nervous system, and autoimmune diseases. Okay. All those things, plus other things, obviously, they radically affect our careers, whether you're an executive, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a sales rep, a stay-at-home parent, a teacher. Okay. I'm going to repeat this again and again and again. Trauma has to be brought into the world of medicine, not to prescribe something else. Okay. Not to say you're going crazy in your head and going to a mental institution. No, but to address it alongside our physical symptoms. Our physical symptoms don't just happen. You don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, I am now, okay, wait. If you get food poisoning, yes. But again, that's still a trauma on your body, okay? Oh my gosh, I'm just creating, like, just saying all these things, and they really do, they relate, okay? But here's the thing is, like, especially chronic ones that lead to things like autoimmune disease. And anyone out there who has a chronic set of symptoms, or what are autoimmune diseases, and is trying to work in any capacity, trying to provide for their family or themselves in any capacity, you know how challenging this can be. And think about this, if you are dealing with it, imagine how many other people are, and how many other people are dealing with it, just trying to make it through the day and making decisions for our schools, our communities, our churches, our workplaces. Oh my goodness. Okay. And you're just given another protocol and expected to get better. So here's the thing. So many people come to me and they're already worn out from the medical world. All the symptoms, and they keep getting pushed aside. They're masked with another supplement, diet, workout regimen, or medication, whatever it may be. Here, go do yoga. It's going to make it better. Like, I'm sorry. Yes, I enjoy yoga. It is a great modality to add in when the person's ready. Okay. When their physical and mental body are ready. It is beautiful. Okay. But when we work together through a unique protocol, okay, and I'm talking about like some of my clients and stuff like that, and we're still missing a piece, like they're not getting better, like their gut's still a problem, their thyroid's still out of whack, their adrenals are still like, what the heck is going on? I feel overworked. They've got an infection, parasites. We think we've got through that. Sometimes we have gotten through some of those things, the mold, and we're still not feeling better. I stop and this was earlier in my practice. Now I ask the questions up front, but I tell them, like, you haven't done the trauma work. And they're like, I don't have trauma. Like, I'm sorry, BS. You do. Okay. If you're still not getting healed. Now, here's the thing. Well, I'll go into this later. But anyways, I do want to say I'm not licensed to do trauma therapy yet. Okay. But there are things that I request clients to do, like try out, seek out, as we're simultaneously healing their physical bodies. And I'm going to tell you, people do not like hearing it. They say they don't have time, they have a job, they have a family, whatever the excuse, y'all, then just keep getting sick. Okay. Just keep getting sick. If you don't, we make time what we want to make time for. Just like we make money, we make right plans in our finances for things that we think are important. You think that big screen TV is important, or that vacation is important, or that hair or that nails is important. You're going to do whatever you can to find the money for that. if you're struggling with your health issues and you're coming to me or other people and you're complaining about that stuff, y'all better be having the financial aspect of it ready and the time aspect of it ready to go and make that a priority. Because if not, first of all, I'm not going to do business with you because you're not committed. Okay. And you really don't want to solve your health issues. You just want to sit in the pity. Okay. I'm real with you guys. I always am. Okay. You got to commit to it. My programs don't cost an extreme amount of money, but they do compensate for my time and my effort because I put a lot into you guys, a lot, which is why I don't take on hundreds of clients at a time. Okay. Because I want you to heal. You were designed to do something in this world. I don't know what that is. You and God only know, but you were designed to do it. And it's hard to do it when you're constantly dealing with these nasty symptoms that are a root cause, and the root cause is trauma. Okay. So, but I will tell you that people don't like hearing that part about they have trauma. Okay. Whatever. Okay. But here's the thing, if you come to me and say, I don't have trauma and you're still not healing, there's two things that are happening. Okay. One, you are not following the protocol and communicating to me honestly everything that has you've been dealing with, everything that you're taking, like all the things. Okay. And we're human. We're not gonna do things perfectly, please. But you got to come to me and say, just like a kid when they're going to their teacher, like, oh my goodness, I don't know how many of us have done this when we were growing up. Tried to slide by about like not doing our homework and then try to pass the test. Or my favorite was when I was doing piano lessons and I'd be like, yeah, I practiced this week. Come on, the teacher knows when you don't practice. Just like the practitioner knows when you didn't follow the protocol. I don't know how many people I've called out on it, like you didn't follow it. Well, yeah, you know what? I didn't do it exactly. I wanted to try something else. Like y'all, again, just like I said at the beginning here, we all put in this time and effort to create these protocols. And when we're going to call you out on something because you're not doing it, don't start being defensive with us. We know what we know. And when we don't, if we don't, a good practitioner, by the way, is going to say they don't, and they're going to go find the answer. And then they're going to come back and say, hey, okay, your body's reacting this way to the protocol because, or hey, let's try this and see how your body reacts or responds here. Okay. Please. So that's one. Okay. Or two, you are following the protocol and you are communicating well, and you're still not feeling good. The answer is always, and I am a data person. If you guys have all known me for the years, I have a background in engineering and operations. Data is my game. Okay. The answer is always unresolved trauma. Always. People come to me with thyroid issues. Okay. So tell me about your childhood. Why? Because I want to know about your childhood. I ask the juicy questions. Okay. And people who typically have thyroid problems or any kind of trauma, they don't tell you about the good things that happen in their childhood. They start telling you about the things that were just kind of so so or not okay. Just saying. Okay. But here's the crazy part, every single time a client misses doesn't take care of the trauma piece, sorry, every time you take care of the trauma piece, your symptoms go away. I am not saying, now I am going to make this disclaimer. Trauma takes a long time to heal, guys. Okay. It's not going to be in a couple weeks or a few months. It might not even be in a year. Okay. It's going to be years. Okay. It's going to be years. I still have at times where I'm like completely down and out. And I'm like, what the heck? It's not that time of month. It's not like something didn't happen in our family or anything like that. It's something triggered me and I just am down and out. But you have to recognize those things and give yourself extra rest and not go down the Google rabbit hole or calling your doctor up and be like, oh my gosh, I have this symptom. What's going on? Oh my gosh. Oh my, all the anxiety and stuff. Cause that's just going to create chaos again in your body. Okay. But when those symptoms go away, it's so crazy. Okay. When your symptoms go away, we're then able to support and heal your physical body and get it back to its homeostasis. Okay. That's the cool thing. That is the really cool thing. You still might have to take some supplements, do a couple modalities, things like that, but it's not like this excessive thing that you were doing before. You're not dealing with as much before. You're keeping the body at its homeostasis. Okay. And guys, you're gonna have things that come up where whoop, your body gets flipped out of there. And then we just, okay, well, what happened? All right, let's test again. Let's see what's going on now. because the symptoms you had however long ago are not going to be the same now. And what happened, a long time ago is not going to be the same as what just happened now. Maybe you had a death or you had a job issue or whatever it is that you haven't dealt with before. Like it happens. It's life. Okay. Now, I do want to preface something here because this is very important. Things actually can go wrong if you don't address, and I'm going to speak this to practitioners, and I'm going to speak this to those people who think they're empowered right now to go out there and take control of their health. Okay. I do encourage that, but it really is helpful to have someone guide you along the way who's been there and done that first. And then please go get the training, the certifications, the licenses that you need to go do what God called you to do. Okay. Things can go wrong if you don't address the trauma and the physical symptoms appropriately. And I don't say this to scare any of you, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, a lot of you who are hypervigilance or in trauma response are going to start going down that path. Please don't, just listen. Okay. I want to say this because I want to make you aware that a very large majority of practitioners and therapists do not do this correctly. They have a good heart. They just don't have the training. They don't have the knowledge. They don't want to go down that path, and that's fine. Okay. And again, you're not going to like what I have to say, but unresolved trauma always, okay, always, I don't take those words lightly, always turns into chronic health issues that are going to come up and out of the surface eventually. Because people who have trauma, and especially like complex PTSD, any form of PTSD, things like that, you've been taught based on the caretakers and the circumstances around you to stuff it and just do the job. And so what happens is you're living in that constant survival mode, okay? And your body is protecting itself. It's going to come out in some form of symptoms. You're just be like, oh man, you know what? I have diarrhea. I just got to deal with it. Okay, move on. I got a job to do. And listen to your clients if you're a practitioner listening in, about what they're saying, how fast they're talking, what they're doing with their days, things like that. Okay, just a little side note there. Okay. But it's going to come out because that's the way the body communicates to us. Your hand doesn't just start talking to you. Okay. Your skin doesn't just say, like, oh my gosh, like, look at here. By the way, I have hives because blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, like, gut doesn't just start saying, hey, you know what? I've got an issue going on in my upper GI tract because blah. It just doesn't. Okay. So it's our jobs to listen to the body. Okay. It's the body's way of communicating, like, hey, yo, like, there's some stored trauma going on in here, and we're all freaking out because we just can't handle it anymore. So please do something. That was my body and how I think it talks. um, but when I say you can do it wrong, I'm talking about when you first find out you have unresolved trauma stored in your body. People are say, you got to go talk it out to a therapist. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. People are going to say, you got to process it. Okay. Yes, you do. Okay. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with this. I do it. Okay. But here's the thing, if you have a chronic health issue, this is what I want you to be aware of, like an autoimmune condition or any kind of like really chronic situation going on. This is what happens. You get a flare up, and everyone's like, back when I was focusing solely on just like autoimmune stuff, when I thought I had autoimmune stuff and whatnot, the what happened is what happens is, here's the deal, is when you have Daisy, sorry, my dog's barking here, but your body is not, when you have a flare up, it means your body's not ready to go through the steps. Your body's like, hold on, we're not ready to process that grief. We're not ready to process that anger. Okay. It literally stops you in its tracks. So when you're getting issues, when you're getting a flare up, here's what I would do is just stop and be like, right, don't be like in the middle of like a work meeting and be like, oh my God, like I gotta stop here. But you know what I mean? Like stop and be like, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? Right? When you're completely exhausted, when you have aches and pains, you're wired at night and you can't sleep, or you're barely getting any sleep because you're all these nightmares you're having, or the anxiety or the panic attacks, things you think about that you're emotional, you're crying a lot, or you're getting angry a lot. And those physical symptoms, what happens, they wear you out because your trauma never allowed you to have those emotions. And now years later, you're completely drained from them because either your caretakers or whatever happened, you weren't taught how to process those as a younger child. Okay. You were taught to just go to your room and deal with it. Who's heard that one before? Okay. So you have to, and I said this in another couple of podcasts I was on recently, but you have to allow yourself extra time to process the talk therapy. Okay. You have to allow yourself the extra time to get through the physical symptoms. Y'all, I ain't going to be able to give you a supplement or a protocol for like 3 or 6 months to like heal your gut, and everything's going to be a okay. 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 Literally, when I was first diving in to talk therapy, I was energetic. I was like, I'm telling you this, I'm telling you this, I'm telling you this, I'm telling you this. And all of a sudden I was getting flares. So like I have a Whoop wearable. If you're on the video, you can see it here on YouTube. And I track my HRV to see what type of workout I should do during the day, um, based on like how I slept, like if I didn't sleep well, or if I had a really long emotional or physical day the day before, and I didn't get enough rest. So then I'm like not going to do like a heavy weighted or a hit workout that next day. Maybe I'm not doing anything. Maybe I'm doing somatics. Maybe I'm doing yoga. Maybe whatever it may be. Maybe I'm just stretching or doing the sauna or something like that. But during that time when I was like getting the flares and so exhausted, no joke, for almost 2 months, I actually contacted Whoop. I'm like, something's wrong with my Whoop, and said, my HRV dropped from my normal of 56 at that time to 30. My average was my HRV every day was 30. Like anyone who knows anything about HRV, that heart rate variability, that's like death. Like you are not doing well. I was constantly in the red. I felt sick. I didn't want to move. I just wanted to cry all day. I even told my therapist, I don't want to do this anymore. And I took 5 weeks off. I was like, I'm not going back to this. I actually was looking into hypnotherapy, and I'm like, someone just hypnotize me and get this done. I know you go crazy. And I know many of you out there deal with this. You're like, you literally, your head goes crazy. You're like, I just want something to heal, like anything. My body was feeling so much. And at that time, I'm like, I don't know. My therapist, she kind of knew, but we were moving too fast. And I was, because of how I've been trained over the 40 years of my life, like, move fast, you got to go, you got to do. And I was trying to push my body and my mind like fast, I get through this trauma therapy stuff fast, 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 fast. When actually, what happens when we're processing this stuff and we're doing it the right way, we do feel worse before we get better. Okay. I tell all my clients this, whether you're a trauma client or not, like, you're going to feel worse before you get better, because like in the functional medicine world, this is called the Herx effect, when the body is like detoxing gunk from your system, when you're having a bunch of caffeine and all of a sudden I'm like, nope, sorry, no caffeine. Or an alcoholic knows this well, when you stop drinking, like you go through that withdrawal, you're like, what is going on? It's called a Herx effects. Herx effect. And so you feel completely drained. And in a trauma case, your emotions and your stored trauma are releasing and draining you out because you weren't taught how to handle this stuff before. Okay. That's why I'm so incredibly cautious. And I'm very careful when I have other practitioners even contact me and they're like, okay, I know you work with autoimmune and this person is this, and they're just going through this. And the first thing I ask them is, what kind of stress are they dealing with? Well, I mean, they got work stress, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what kind of trauma? What happened in their childhood? And they're like, why are you asking me that? Because it seriously affects how they're going to process their healing, how they're going to, how you should approach the healing process. Okay. And I'm also very, very cautious with those who I've worked with over the years who are executives who are burnt out. And all of a sudden, over the past couple of years, they've gained a lot of weight. Now, y'all like blame it on COVID. I'm sorry, it's not. Okay. Um, you gain a lot of weight, lost your drive, your passion, foods are bothering them. Like you're incredibly tired and worn out from every area of life. Like you get home and you're like, oh, okay. And then you try to turn the phone off and you can't. And you're like, well, work needs me. And then you're up all night and then you're worrying about things and then you do it all over again and you're just completely drained. Okay. And maybe you're once an extrovert and now you thrive on being quiet and all alone. You don't go out anymore. You don't have fun. You don't like all those type of things. Like Gabor says, he has a quote and he says, what we call the personality is often a jumble of genuine traits and adopted coping styles that do not reflect our true self at all, but the loss of it. That's what happens. I was told my whole life I was an introvert. And I was like, okay, all right. But why do I feel like I'm fighting myself? And literally just from like trauma in general, you're fighting yourself on the inside. You're like, I want to do this, I want to do this. My body is doing this. I don't know what to do. I got to push forward. I got to pay the bills. I got to like all these different things. These are signs of unresolved trauma and they're forcing themselves out of the body. They're like trying so hard. Like life shouldn't be about you fighting yourself all the time. Okay. Conventional doctors are going to say, and I hear this so many times, makes me want to go and punch them in the face. Sorry, but like it's all in your head. Just take a vacation. Why tone down the stress. Stop taking on so many projects. You don't have to be involved in everything. Go, or for the parents, like, go get a babysitter. What they don't know and what they're not asking is that if you are working incredibly hard at your job, you're trying to get all the accolades, you're trying to get all the things, right? And you're not stopping, that is actually a trauma response. It is. You're trying to show your worth in the workplace. You're trying to show your worth to your children and your family. You're trying to show your worth in your community and at your church, wherever you work. Okay. Because you weren't shown that in childhood. And I'm not going to go down that path, but it's a trauma response and no diet, no supplement, no workout program, no medication, no other modality, no amount of rest is going to solve that. You have to do the hard freaking work of the trauma work, okay? But here's the thing too is if you don't address it, these people that you're dealing with or you guys as the clients, like you're actually re-traumatizing yourself over and over and over and over, okay? So, you're like great information, Vanessa. You really made me feel good in this episode, okay? I, um, but I want to bring to a point here like how can we do this safely? Okay. Now, how can you heal safely? So, first, I want to talk about the difference between a trauma response and a stress response, because there is a difference. Now, Dr. Amy talks about this a lot, and I learned a lot from her. And I found her when I was doing all this research over the past couple of years, but I actually take it a step further um, with how it affects our personalities and our career lives, because I mean, it does. So, with trauma, when your body won't heal in any form, mentally, physically, emotionally, if it doesn't feel safe. Okay. If it doesn't feel safe. So that's why it's so important to me to make sure my clients feel safe with me. If they don't, their body's going to stay in that state of trauma, and which looks like high stress to the untrained eye. Okay. And they don't heal. They don't. And you're like, well, I guess that person, they just didn't heal. I couldn't help them. Now I'm going to refer out to a specialist and see what happens. And the person goes to a specialist and they're still not getting healed and all the things. Okay. And, a lot of us too, if you don't know what like, if you're not trained to look for trauma response, or how a person responds to trauma and things like that and what happens in their body, you just might think that, and I was told this a lot, and a lot of my clients are too, because a lot of them are executives and whatnot. Like this person is very motivated. They are tenacious. They are driven. They are successful, and they might make comments. So think about this: if you make comments like this, or if your patients or clients make comments like this, I just feel the fear and I do it anyways. I just do it scared. Just got to get it done, right? And that when that happens, is we're pushing our body to do something it doesn't feel safe doing because we feel like we have to do it because that's what the world says, right? Okay. We're not listening to our body. We're just listening to what the world tells us to do. Just keep going no matter what, right? Keep chugging along, right? Work hard. You can what's the saying about like when you can sleep when you're dead, right? Come on, guys. I mean, that's not right. And we don't listen to our bodies. It's cry to be safe. Just like Gabor says, when you don't, and I think I posted his quote like a few weeks ago here too. It's like when you don't know how to say no, your body will say it for you. Your body will knock you on the feet, right? You'll see trauma just manifests as all these different health issues, and you're like, what just happened, right? You'll literally wake up one day and be like, WTF, right? Like God designed our bodies to speak to us, guys. He really did. He We just have to slow down and listen. We're all about like go, 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 go. And I know that's hard as a trauma survivor because as trauma survivors, like as we learn, we weren't You always had to be on the go. We always had to be hyper vigilant. Like, oh my gosh, what's that? What's that noise? Oh my gosh, like who's that outside? What are they doing here? Like those type of things. And but we only slow down as trauma survivors when we feel that we're safe. And no therapist, no practitioner, no neighbor, no friend, no spouse, anyone can do that for you. You have to figure that out yourself. People can guide you, okay? But once you feel safe, your body's going to start to open up and it's going to be welcoming to the healing process, okay? And then it moves itself from the trauma response to the stress response. Trauma is like you're nonstop, like you are nonstop. Now, when you get to the stress response, you'll know because you're going to experience intense energy of like anger and sadness. That's not necessarily a trauma response, that's the stress response. Okay. It's definitely crazy to experience personally and watch other people go through it. And when our bodies they feel safe, we're creating an experience that pulls us out of the constant sympathetic state and puts us in more and more into that parasympathetic state. And that's the state in which we can heal, that rest and digest, right? We can't rest when we're being chased by a bear, right? It's hard when you're on that high power mode. You're like, I've got to do this and I got to do this and I got to make this sale at work and I got to meet this quota and I got to close this deal and I got to get the kids from here to there and I got like all the time. And here's the thing is if you're given a protocol that involves trying to reduce your high cortisol levels, and you don't solve the trauma, you're going to make things worse. You're going to literally be giving your cortisol like more, okay? Now, many of us are taught as practitioners that high cortisol is bad for long periods of time. Yes, it is. But if you're not looking at it deep, deep, deep in the root cause, which most likely is trauma, then you're actually hurting the healing process and you're making it take longer. Okay? We want a person to be in the parasympathetic mode as much as possible, especially someone who's been through all the trauma. They don't even know what it feels like. It actually freaks them out. Like, I feel like I can't do anything today, but it feels good, but I'm at peace. Like, what? Right? And I want you to know it's not, you're not bored, you're not lazy. It's like this peaceful yet energetic feeling. Now, doesn't this seem practical that every practice out there should be looking at each and every client in this manner to make sure they're safe, to have them learn how to release their trauma response into the normal stress response, and then be able to do the physical healing? And then, gosh, my goodness, we would have so many healthy people. And I use healthy lightly. But like them in their homeostasis, like walking around and making decisions in our homes and communities and workplaces that are just good and from a good place. And here's something else to know. You can give this amazingly healthy protocol, okay, to a person struggling with tons of symptoms. And we all, as practitioners, want to save people, okay? But if you don't know that person has unresolved trauma, which by the way is healed through the vagus nerve, not the HPA axis, okay, you can actually cause them to shut down more. Trauma does more damage to a body than stress ever will. I'm going to say that again. Trauma does more damage to a body than stress. Okay. The mass, you have unexplained histamine and inflammation issues. The massive amounts of adrenaline needed to respond to trauma actually, it just tears up your digestive system. It tears it up. There's unexplained brain fog, which, by the way, if you didn't know, that's another name for brain inflammation. Okay. Trauma also starts the pattern of autoimmunity since trauma is in our immune system. So instead of giving someone this uniquely crafted, designed, carefully, whatever protocol, what does their trauma healing journey actually look like? What do we need to do instead? I'm not saying those protocols are bad, but you have to take into account what trauma looks like. So we have to check for three different dysregulation states. One, they're stuck in sympathetic mode where the fire is never over. Like they are constantly on, okay? Two, they have low energy, so they're heavily dependent on caffeine or other energy producing substances to get through the day, okay? And then they're like wired at night, typically. Or three, they're completely zoned out. They're scrolling social media, They're just barely getting through. They're using other substances to quote feel at rest, watching excessive, amounts of TV or playing video games until they go to sleep. Eating. That another one is like just eating whatever because it makes them feel good. Okay. So when you're in one of those dysregulation states, you have trauma and you're just existing. Think about those. When you're stuck in sympathetic, when you're on low energy or you're zoned out, what value are you adding to this world? What good decisions are coming from your mind and your body? Like none. Okay? We don't need more people like that. We need more people who are ready to step up into this world and do what they were called to do. So we can change all the freaking chaos going on in this world, okay? Here's the thing is when you're just existing, you've lost your joy, you've lost your purpose, you're irritable because now people take up your energy, right? Does any of this resonate with you? If so, I really encourage you to reach out and book a call with me so we can dive deeper. Then, in the meantime, I highly encourage if you're like, I'm not ready for that, keep following me. By the way, keep listening to these episodes. But in the meantime, go to YouTube and start searching for somatics. And when you practice these somatics, and I mean every day, they're very short, they're like 15 minutes or less. Um, you'll start to release that stored trauma and start the safe connection back to your body. And I do find that a traumatized person doesn't even know they're disconnected from their body. I didn't even know this. All of my clients that I've dealt with, they have no idea. They're like, I'm connected with my body. Okay, do some somatic work. And then in about 15 to 20 days, come back to me and tell me that you were already connected to your body beforehand. Okay. But the, another thing Another set of 3 things I actually see with those physically, like in labs and stuff, of those with unresolved trauma are deficiencies in zinc and B6. And guys, those are very essential for a healthy nervous system. And the other thing is almost all of them have excessive copper being released via their hair follicles. Okay. We have a specific test, and actually both those tests I can run and finds the excessive copper and the zinc and the B6 issues. And the third is and actually this one too, yeah. The third is they struggle with detoxification and methylation issues. And what's the symptom I hear that correlates with all of these? Vanessa, my biggest problem is I have a lack of energy. I'm just so exhausted. So I'm really careful and gentle when creating protocols for my clients. We look for the lowest hanging fruit as we're processing trauma because it's so important to heal physically and emotionally and to do so in step with one another. You can't do one without the other. You just can't. I mean, you can, but you're just not going to heal. I'm sorry. So if you truly want to heal, as scary as it is, and as hard as it can be, and as long of a process as it can be, just know you're not alone. This is the work that God has called me to do. Because if I ever see a child, young or adult, being emotionally, verbally, physically, spiritually abused, I will step in. No one deserves to go through this that kind of childhood, that kind of life, deal with these trauma responses, the debilitating mental and physical symptoms as a result of caretakers not willing to acknowledge or address their own trauma. Okay. Very passionate about this. It has affected so many people in our society. But if you want more clarity and want to figure out what your body is trying to tell you through all your symptoms, then please get on a free call with me so I can help you not spend all the time, energy, and money that I did for 15 plus years. And let's get right down to business to help you take control of your health. Okay. The link to the free call is in the show notes, along with links to things like the Whoop and stuff like that in there as well. But until next time, I can't talk. I'm just so passionate, I can't even talk. But until next time, let's keep uncovering the root cause of your symptoms and designing the best you that this world so desperately needs.